Real.
And Pat, for quite some time, you've been highlighting the persecution of Christians in the Middle East for quite some time.
You know, the amazing thing is, here you've got a Jewish cartoonist who is saying, I'm appalled, I'm shocked, I'm amazed that the Christians around the world don't come to the defense of their fellow religionists. Well, that's the legacy of political correctness, because Christians are scared to death to say anything about Islam. You can't criticize Islam. You can't point out Islam. And of course, in certain jurisdictions, you get sued and put in jail if you say anything about Islam. But Islam has been out killing Christians. There is no question about it. And yet, in order to take a defense of Christians, you've also got to say, well, they're being killed by somebody. And the somebody are the Islamic extremists. But we can't say that. 1,000 pages out of the United States guidelines for the FBI in having to do with terrorism were redacted or withdrawn because they mentioned the fact that these guys are terrorists and we have to be alert to them. That's what political correctness is doing. So we're disarming unilaterally. John?
Pat, speaking of terrorism, the U.S. coalition is ramping up its offensive against ISIS terrorists in Syria. An activist group says the coalition carried out more than a dozen airstrikes in and around northeastern Syria in recent days. That's where the Islamic State's de facto capital is located. The air raids hit areas on the outskirts of the city of Raqqa along the Euphrates River. This marks the heaviest round of coalition strikes on the city since ISIS captured a Jordanian pilot after his F-16 jet went down near Raqqa on Christmas Eve. No word on casualties. The attacks come as Kurdish fighters have regained ground in the key Syrian city of Kobani. They now reportedly control 70% of the town. Former New York Governor Mario Cuomo has died at the age of 82. He passed just hours after his son Andrew was sworn in Thursday for a second term as governor of New York, and he honored his father in his inauguration speech.
He couldn't be here physically today, my father, but my father is in this room. He's in the heart and mind of every person who is here.
The elder Cuomo had been hospitalized since November with congestive heart disease. He served 3 terms as governor from 1983 to 1994. He was a staunch liberal and is remembered for his scathing criticism of then-President Ronald Reagan. Cuomo was considered a leading contender for the Democratic nomination for president, but he never ran. And he was also considered for the Supreme Court during the Clinton presidency. Pat, back to you.
Well, you know, I mourn his passing. He was an extraordinarily eloquent person, a very decent human being. I don't necessarily agree with some of his politics, but that doesn't mean that I cannot mourn the fact that he is no longer with us, because he was a very, very eloquent voice, and I think we were all inspired by his words. John?
France has given up on its super tax on the wealthy, dropping it as 2014 came to an end. Socialist President Francois Hollande proposed a tax of up to 75% on people earning above 1 million euros a year. That's about 1.2 million American dollars. One critic called it Cuba without the sun. Many wealthy French fled the country to avoid paying the tax, like actor Gerard Depardieu, who became a Russian citizen. The super tax was rejected by a court, rewritten, and ultimately netted only a fraction of its projected income for the government. The super tax also created huge problems for France with international businesses, along with the sports and arts industries. And when it was proposed, British Prime Minister David Cameron promised to roll out the red carpet to French companies who wanted to avoid the tax. Well, a new study has shown why there could be a link between red meat and various types of cancer. The study found red meat includes a sugar molecule that doesn't occur naturally in the human body, so the immune system attacks it. That leads to inflammation, which can in turn lead to tumors. The lead doctor in the study from the University of California, San Diego, says the foreign chemical acts like pouring gasoline on a fire and increases the risk of cancer, but doesn't necessarily cause it. The London Daily Mail reports he doesn't advise cutting out red meat completely, just cutting back on it. The World Cancer Research Fund advises a maximum of about £1 a week, about the size of a steak or a few cheeseburgers. And Pat, I guess given that it's a new year, a lot of people will be paying close attention to their diets.